The Top Knot Creative Show, the Top Knot Creative Show. Seeking super smart, super talented superheroes. How to be wow over the world and all around. The Top Knot Creative Show, the Top Knot Creative Show.
Hello everyone, this is Shantae Schrader and welcome to the show where we seek out the super smart, super talented, and basically the superheroes who are taking over the world and making it super wow. Today we are talking with Susan Graf, Vice President and General. She started out as Vice President and General Manager of Hofgaard Benefits when she provided expert employee benefit advice and plan designed for over 100 businesses and organizations in Boulder County. She then went on to be the VP of Operations and VP of Human Resources for Leaning Tree Inc. She led the operation of a creative and successful entrepreneurial enterprise. She helped change the culture to one of continuous improvement, reduced the cost of corporate safety program by 62%, reduced inventory levels by 33%, and reduced waste by 25%. She was then the executive director and moved on to be the president and CEO of the Boulder Chamber of Commerce for 8 years. And that's a membership organization of over 1,800 businesses where she promoted the innovative and entrepreneurial brand of the amazing Boulder business community. We're going to find out a lot more about that. She has specialties which include strategic planning, operations management, nonprofit management, human resources management, employee benefits, collaboration, team facility, leading, managing, partnering, financial planning, budgeting, key measures. Basically, she does it all. So we are so excited to have her on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today, Susan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, well, as I was telling you, I am excited to talk about your expertise, which is let's go right into the tagline for City Projects, which is social change through real estate. What does that mean?
So, one of the interesting things that's happened in the last 5 to 10 years is that place has become sort of the key economic and social organizing unit of our time. So people choose where they want to live and then figure out a way to make a living from there. So a lot of communities are trying to provide the kind of ecosystem that supports entrepreneurs through both sort of the physical infrastructure of real estate, but also intellectual infrastructure and what I'll call inspirational infrastructure to create these just wonderful places to live and hopefully have a density of really innovative people that are going to come up with great new business ideas, create jobs, and create a healthy economy.
Excellent. Now, you've primarily been in Boulder for a long period, and you were the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce there, and that is, they're kind of a booming area.
It is, and I've been very fortunate. I came to CU to go to graduate school, got involved in the business community here, and ended up working for a number of entrepreneurs. And I guess I have not been an entrepreneur myself, but I consider myself someone who enables entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And I was able to do that both in the private sector situations that I was in early in my career, but also at the Boulder Chamber. We hosted the Economic Development Organization, the Small Business Development Center for Boulder County. So there was a lot of interaction with large businesses, but also lots of small businesses and entrepreneurs. And there were just a number of ways that we could help connect entrepreneurs to mentors and professional service providers, connecting them to potential partners and advisors, sometimes access to capital. And then there are some things that you help to create that environment that hopefully makes them successful by having a tax system that promotes job creation, that labor laws that are good for both the workers and the employers, making sure they have access to health care, just getting roadblocks out of entrepreneurs' way and making sure that the legislative and legal environment is one in which they can be successful as well.
That's excellent. So you really work as the connector of the dots, so they can focus on their thing.
Absolutely. It's tough to be an entrepreneur on your own, and having those connections to whether it's IP attorneys or advisors who have done this before, or the other great employees for your company, and getting the right people on the bus, as author Jim Collins would say. Those are all key connections, and then obviously access to capital and helping them pave the way legislatively, whether that's getting visas for entrepreneurs so they can stay in this country. Those types of things are all great support network, so the entrepreneur can stay busy growing their company.
So as you were president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce for 8 years, and those 8 years really fell in a time when things were evolving and probably seemed to change every single year. What was that like to just try to stay afront of it?
It was a very interesting time to be at the Chamber. I actually came in at the end of 2003 when the dot-com bubble had burst, and Boulder actually had the highest unemployment rate I think we've ever had in our history, including the latest downturn. And people thought I was a little nuts going to work for a chamber or membership organization at that time, but I found that when there's a crisis, everybody comes together and wants to work together. So sharing resources, working on common issues, common problems. Everyone wanted to work collaboratively so that we could dig our way out of the unemployment rate and the downturn in the tech market in particular. And then we went into these really boom years in 2005 and 2006, and people were growing like crazy, and there were businesses popping up where you didn't even necessarily understand their business plan, and they're getting funding, and they're starting companies, and then all of a sudden it crashed again. So it was a really interesting time to be leading the business community through those ups and downs, and I really felt my role in 2009 in particular when people were most anxious about what was going to happen when the capital markets dried up for a lot of small businesses, to explain to people this is when you need to be out there working on your business. Hunkering down now is not the right thing to do. This is when most successful companies expand their market share, is during a down economy. And so we helped people get out there and promote their business and be visible and weather this storm. And at the same time, looking at all of their investments, whether it's their lease rates or their advertising budget, to make sure they're being as effective as possible with those dollars, which they hadn't had to do during all the boom years. So it was a great time to step up and help provide some of that leadership and help connect people and give them confidence that they can survive this. And it's a great time to dust off your business plan, get back to basics, make sure you know exactly what business you're in and stay focused on that and do it as efficiently as possible.
Yes, have a clear vision for what you want to accomplish. I'm sure you were able to give them really good insight and plus be a beacon of light.
Optimism, right.
Exactly. Now, social entrepreneurship, this is a relatively new thing that we talk about now. When did that kind of surface for you?
So this has been probably the last 5 years that it's been pretty active. And it's interesting that if you had been on college campuses even before that, you could see this coming. There was a time when I was doing some guest lecturing and was on campus interacting with a lot of students, and they definitely had a negative attitude toward really large corporations. And this is back in the time where there was a lot of malfeasance going on with Enrons and WorldComs and some of the large companies that were just not modeling good behavior for business people. And a lot of college students at that time were saying, I want to start my own business. I want to go work for an NGO. I want to do things where I can get involved immediately, roll up my sleeves, make a difference, and make a difference in the world and do something positive. So it was not a surprise that it has become such a popular thing for people to do. And we've just seen this mushroom and bloom, in particularly in the last few years, where we have organizations such as the Unreasonable Institute in Boulder, which is kind of a summer boot camp for social entrepreneurs. So it's people from around the world who are interested in developing a product or a service that is going to help a social problem, and they have an economic solution for it. And they come to Boulder, and they are aided by all these amazing advisors. They live in a house together so they can share their ideas and support each other, get all this great advice, and then hopefully launch their company when they go back to their country. And some of the projects that have come out of the Unreasonable Institute are just incredible and amazing. And it's just fun to watch. I think this is their fourth summer to be doing this, and it's been great to see the impact that they've had.
Wow.
And then we're also seeing what I would call more mainstream businesses that are getting on board. There has been the creation in the last few years of the companies or the organizations called NLAB, and they're helping to create B corporations, as they're calling them. And these are businesses that have a social component to their business plan. So it's not just philanthropy that they do on the side of their business plan, but it's actually built into their business plan. And they're it's B Lab. I referred to the wrong program. I was referring to one that was on campus here at CU, but B Lab is the organization, and they have a certification called B Corps. And those are companies that have dedicated, in the case of a company here in town, a software company called Rally Software, they have committed to providing 1% of their employees' time, 1% of their products, and 1% of the equity of their company to a cause that's near and dear to their heart. And it's built right into their business plan. So it's amazing how, as I said, mainstream businesses that are not in the business of solving social problems are helping to support that ecosystem. It's been fun to watch.
And it just feels different. The nonprofit sector can always be like big corporations. They have a non-for-profit, but there's a different feeling when it's really built into it. The way you said that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's start talking about that. Nonprofits, and kind of one of the questions that we discussed earlier was mistakes that nonprofits make when they're starting to expand their programs, to relocate, to renovate. Why don't we get right into that? So
that has been an ongoing challenge for quite a while, and I think because of the downturn in the economy in the last few years, it got even tougher on nonprofits that are looking to serve their clients, and they're in a down economy. The need for their service or their service is growing. They probably have more clients in need of their service, and at the same time, they're seeing a shrinking base of any government grants, foundation grants, and also individual philanthropy and corporate philanthropy. And so they have fewer revenue sources, and then they have increased needs for providing services. And so it has been a time for nonprofits to go back again to their business plan and say, what is the core of our business? How can we do this the most efficiently? Should we be partnering with other organizations that are similar? how do we leverage some of the board members that we have and the volunteers that we have available to us so that we can help provide more services at this time, or scale back our services in a really efficient way so that we can get the most benefit for the least amount of expenditures. So it's been going back to school for a lot of nonprofits in figuring out a way to run a really efficient organization. And a lot of nonprofit directors don't necessarily have a business background. It's been a great time for business people who serve on boards of nonprofits to step up and to help revise business plans and help ask questions so that the nonprofit organization can run a little bit more like a business and be as efficient as possible in their operations so that more dollars can flow to their clients to provide services.
It's like an equalizer. We're asking the nonprofits to operate more like a business. We're asking the businesses to consider more of the social entrepreneurship there. That's
exactly. The lines are blurring, and I think that's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like a very good thing just to integrate those instead of the separation. Let's talk about, there's just so many directions we can go. Let's talk about city projects, actually.
So the City of Boulder is in the middle of one large project, which is deciding whether or not they should take over the municipal utility and provide electric services to their customers. And they have had a franchise agreement with Xcel Energy for a long time. Xcel has a very large service area. They're a company out of Minneapolis. And Boulder has been working with Xcel over the years to try and provide cleaner sources of energy, which meet the sustainability goals and values of the city of Boulder and the citizens of Boulder. And those conversations have gone a certain distance, but the people in the community want to take it further and even go beyond the renewable energy standard that the state of Colorado has adopted, which says that all energy companies, all privately owned energy companies, need to provide 30% of their energy from renewable sources. And in our community, they have said, that's not enough, that's not fast enough, we want to be more aggressive than that, and didn't feel like they were getting the response from their energy utility company, and they're now exploring ways of taking over that as a community and being able to direct those decisions and where that power comes from. So that's a really big project that is, again, more of an environmental goal for the community. There are also some social sustainability goals that they are working on. The City of Boulder has had a goal for quite a number of years of providing at least 10% of their housing stock as affordable. And I put that in quotes because housing in a market like Boulder is quite a bit more expensive than the average housing in a lot of other communities. But what they are focused on is making sure that not only the very low income in the community can afford to stay in their house or live here, but there's also the workforce housing that's of consideration, that they want to make sure that nurses and firefighters and teachers and people who are not necessarily at the high end of the earning spectrum can afford to live in the community in which they're serving. So the City of Boulder has actually adopted this 10% affordable housing goal, and they're continuing to work toward that. And it's a challenge. It's a community that has decided that it's not going to have buildings above a certain height or beyond a certain density so that they can maintain this quality of life. And again, all this open space that surrounds the community to maintain this quality of life in the community. But those are the things that drive up, those are the decisions that drive up the cost of housing because you have less housing being built. So there's this really delicate balance of how do we provide affordable housing to those in our community that we want to live here so that we can have a diverse and inclusive and income diverse community, and still be able to keep those growth boundaries and keep the community from sprawling and becoming too dense. So those are a couple of challenges that the city is working on: environmental goals, social sustainability goals. Those are the two biggest that they're working on at this point.
So, I mean, that's really compelling. And Boulder, that's a huge project, and I've not heard of a community doing this, taking this on. Is that incredibly unique for?
There are a lot of communities that have taken over their own utility, but they rarely do it so that they can provide more green energy. Mm-hmm. So Boulder is one of the few communities that are doing it for that reason. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. It'll probably take a couple of years before we see where that goes. The affordable housing goal is one that many communities that have high housing costs struggle with. So whether that's San Francisco or Santa Barbara, New York City, there are a number of places that have, because of their location and because of their growth boundaries, have very expensive housing. And there are a lot of communities that have created affordable housing programs, and everybody takes a little different approach to what's in the toolkit that we're going to use to try and solve this problem. And I think all of these communities share best practices with each other. We watch to see what's working in other communities, and does that particular program or tool fit for our community, and how might we apply that. So there are at least a couple dozen other communities in the United States that we're watching and sharing best practices and sharing information with to see if we can help solve that problem here locally.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, I mean, you've had a very rich and extensive career. What would you say to, I would say primarily women who wanted to kind of follow your lead and, follow the same career path? What kind of tips would you give them?
So I think there are some basic attributes that help. If you want to get involved in the community, help solve social problems, help support entrepreneurs. One of those is certainly curiosity. I think it really helps to want to know how problems are being solved, what's new in different industries, just a curiosity about how things work and how they can be improved. And then being passionate about the values of the community, the values of the business community, and then just get involved. A lot of that starts with volunteerism. It's not always the first employment situation that you take, but if you're working for a company, you still have an opportunity to volunteer for nonprofit boards, for community task forces that are dealing with things like affordable housing. It's a really great way to get up to speed on the issues, to meet the other people in the community that are working on these issues. And believe me, it doesn't take long before people figure out that you have an interest and a passion and you bring some capability to it. And whether that's just additional volunteer opportunities or, in my case, employment, I think that that's definitely the way to get involved, is just to volunteer for some organizations that you're passionate about, apply your skills, and see where that leads.
Oh, those are great insights. Now, let's talk about your management style and kind of what your approach is and what you think has helped you in your career.
That's an interesting one. When I came into the workforce, there weren't as many women in management, and you didn't see as many role models as you do today. And it struck me this past weekend, actually, that most of the women that were in managerial roles, that were in leadership roles in business in the early 80s were really tough. They were even harder than to work for than some of the men that were involved in it, and they had to be because they had to be taken seriously. They were paving the way for those of us that were going to follow. Now, I think that people have much more flexibility to leverage their own strengths and their own skills to be what's called an authentic leader. You know, bring yourself to the organization. And if you're a great coach, that's great. If you're somebody who just sees potential in other people and can help encourage them and put them in roles where they can do amazing things, that's great for the team. I guess if I had to give people a few ideas that I think will help everybody be successful, it's to, number one, ask people what they need, both your customers that you're trying to serve and the employees that are working for you. Understand what they need, and don't assume that you know what people need or want. So it always helps to start by asking. I also firmly believe in the give before you get strategy. So I help a lot of people, both within organizations that I've worked for, but also outside of organizations, and not knowing where that's going to lead or if it will lead anywhere. I may never hear from these people again, but if I can introduce them to somebody who can help them in their career or help them with their business, I'm going to do that. So it's that creates great connections, and it's just that give before you get strategy. Somebody might call it good karma. I don't know. But I truly believe in that. And then I think what's harder, in particular for women, is to take some risks. So sometimes you have to challenge the status quo. You have to pave your own way. You have to set yourself apart and identify your company or your product and why it's better or different than somebody else's. And I think that's particularly hard for women to do, and also to scale up. I think men a lot of times are less risk averse and more willing to kind of go all in and really expand at a really fast rate. And I think the more we can provide great role models for women who are small business owners, and most small business owners now are women. They're creating the majority of jobs will in the next few years create more jobs than anyone else in the country. We need to provide not only a great support network, but also some great models for them so they have mentors and they have examples of women in leadership. I think that's helpful.
That's excellent. Now, the next thing would be, I know this is, especially for small businesses, knowing how to hire people.
Yes.
Maybe you can talk about that, your best tips for hiring the best, and then it's easier to manage them.
It is huge. I frequently tell people that your employees are the only appreciating assets in your business, and you should pay more attention to the people that are there than any other decision you make about your business. And getting the right people on the bus, that phrase that I used before, is key to that. So the best advice I can give people is to be really clear about what you're looking for before you start the search process. Because once you start interviewing people, it gets very confusing because there are certain people that you click with or that you like better than others in the interview process. But if before you ever meet the first person, you make a list of what are the expectations for this job, what outcomes do you need, what do they need to be successful, and then weight them. What's the most important thing that they have to have? And then what are some of the nice to have, and how does all that lay out? And then when you start interviewing people, you can rate them objectively against those criteria, and it will sometimes lead you in surprising ways. You end up hiring people sometimes who are very different than you, but they are exactly the people that you might need on your team because they provide those complementary skills. So that's my best hiring tip. And I guess I would only supplement that with fire fast and hire slow. take your time and hire the right people in the first place. It's not a guarantee that you're going to get somebody who's going to be there forever, but it is really hard to discover when somebody's on board that they're not the right person for that job. And I'm not recommending anybody skip any labor laws. You obviously have to go through the process of letting them know what they need to do to improve, giving them an opportunity, those kinds of things. But don't hesitate once you've gone through that process to make a change on your team if that person is absolutely not capable of doing what you need them to do in that role. But do take your time and hire the right person. And if you only have half a dozen applicants and none of them are perfect for your job, recast the net and start all over again. Don't settle for what you have in front of you. Hold out for the right person.
Those are excellent tips. Now, speaking as just an entrepreneur, juggling all sorts of balls in the air, what would be one of your best time management tips?
One of the challenges is figuring out where is the best place to spend your time effectively. And there are so many demands on people where they need to be visible in different places. They need to be involved in their industry. They need to be networking, and yet there are all these things you want to do with your family and your personal life, and you want to work out. The best advice I can give people is that you should figure out what are the highest leverage things for you to be doing, and make sure you schedule those into your calendar every week. So before it gets crazy, on Sunday night you sit down and you say, I'm going to work out, on these 3 days. I'm going to go to this networking opportunity or this professional development opportunity. I'm going to make sure that I thank 3 employees for something great they did this week. Identify those things ahead of time that are so important to do, that are maybe less urgent than those fires that are going to erupt during the week, and actually just plug those into your calendar so you don't lose them in the rush of the week.
No, that's actually what I have started to do with my life. I just plan it
Schedule
out.
time for yourself.
Exactly.
What a great concept. It's so hard to do.
Make appointments with myself to
Yes.
No, that's a really great. It's totally changed everything. So nobody questions what I'm doing or if I'm providing value, because I am.
Perfect.
Now, if someone was looking to hire you, for example, or someone like you with your experience, what would you advise them to look for?
Well, again, some of the qualities that I talked about, where people are making great connections and helping to add value to other people and their companies, I think is really helpful. So if you're interested in knowing how valuable somebody is to have on the team, it's great to ask the beneficiaries of their service or of their product, how well have they done in meeting your needs. So if somebody runs a nonprofit, for example, ask the beneficiaries of their nonprofit, ask the clients, how well is that person doing at meeting their needs. Same thing with people who are in professional services or in economic development. You ask the beneficiaries of those people, how well is somebody doing in meeting your needs. I think that's probably the most important question to be asked in the hiring process. And then I guess I would refer back to the question that I answered earlier, which is know what skills you need from that person on your team, and identify what those are before you even start talking to me. And make sure that I can meet those needs. If you need somebody who's a coach or a mentor, if you need somebody who's really good at strategic planning, if you need somebody who is great at budgeting and managing finance, be really clear about all of those things before you start talking to somebody, and I think you'll make great decisions.
That's excellent. Now, for you specifically, what do you see as coming up? the next career evolution, the next point of interest that you'd like to focus on? Is there anything in particular?
There are so many things that I'm interested in doing, and that's the downside of being a curious and a passionate person. I sometimes joke that it would be so much easier if I was an attorney, because I'd know exactly what it is that I'm going to be doing for someone. But because I've had this opportunity for the last 8 or 9 years to make all these great community connections and to help people connect with each other, I would love to find a way that I could continue to do that. So either for a nonprofit or the community in an economic development role, or at the university, there are a number of schools that are looking for people to do community engagement and outreach, both to help students to find internships and mentors and employment opportunities, but also to get the community involved and alumni back involved with their school or their university. So it's likely that I will go in that direction, where I can bring that connection, that community connection, to an organization or to a university to help further their goals.
Mm-hmm. And that expertise, I could see that being very valuable for, people just wanting you to come in and show them how it's done, be a keynote speaker, training the masses. Anything like that would, I just see it as very valuable as far as the expertise, knowing how to do that, put all those components together.
Thank you. I do get questions about that periodically, and I do sometimes help people with a strategic planning process, or kind of an organizational assessment to see where they are and how they can best leverage the space that they're in. So I'm open to helping with those kind of situations as well.
As we send all sorts of traffic your way. Wait a minute.
And there is a great network of people that are terrific at that, and not surprisingly, based on our conversation, I'm connected with a lot of people that do that. So I'm always happy to connect companies, organizations, people with that kind of support. If I can't provide it, that there's usually someone else in the community that's really good at doing that, and I'm always happy to make those connections as well.
I love it. You're the connector. Love that. Now, if our listeners do want to reach out to you to learn more about you or the network and make contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. You can see my profile out on LinkedIn, Susan Graf, with one F. And you can also reach me at susangraf.boulder@gmail.com. And start a dialogue that way.
Yep, and we will make sure to have those links on the website, as well as all the bio details about you. Is there anything else that we have not gone into that you would love to bring up and discuss?
I think that you've covered some really great areas, and you have the benefit of being in such a great region to do that. I mean, we have not only a density of really exciting industry clusters like technology and bioscience and aerospace, those ones that you'd think of, but also natural foods and organic foods and outdoor sports products and clean energy, and there are just such amazing industry clusters and groups of people that support each other in these industries. And we have such a density of those industry people and those experts here, and people who are willing to share and help other people. It's just an amazing place to start a small business, to be an entrepreneur, to be involved in economic development or social sustainability in any kind of way. So you do a great job with the work that you do, and it's just an amazing place to be.
That's excellent, yes. Any combination of what you kind of come up that you want to do or have or be is pretty much possible anymore.
Exactly. It's amazing.
It's just a matter of plugging in the right details, which sounds like you have that very well covered for everyone. But well, I guess with that, we will wrap the show today. Thank you, Susan, for joining us. I love your tenacity, and you articulated really thoughtful and inspiring conversation. So it was an absolute pleasure to learn more about what you've done and what you are doing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for reaching out. It was my pleasure. I enjoyed conversation.
Oh, you're very welcome. So that would be a wrap. And to our audience, thank you for listening. Now get out there and build something beautiful. Until next time, take care.